स्वागत है आपका हमारी खास पेशकश में। जी बिजनेस पर आज हमारे साथ एक बहुत ही खास मेहमान मौजूद हैं। एक ऐसी हस्ती हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं जिनका हर कदम हमारी और आपकी जेब पर असर डालता है। हमारे साथ हैं आरबीआई गवर्नर श्री रघुराम राजन। सर थैंक्स फॉर जॉइनिंग अस और स्वागत है आपका जी बिजनेस में एंड थैंक्स फॉर दिस एक्सक्लूसिव इंटरेक्शन विद जी बिजनेस। सर मेरा पहला सवाल एंड आई एम आस्किंग प्योरली फ्रॉम आम आदमी पर्सपेक्टिव, यू नो वी केटर टू आम आदमी। आम आदमी इस समय ये सवाल पूछ रहा है कि अफोर्डेबिलिटी बहुत कम हो गई है, महंगाई बहुत ज़्यादा हो गई है, अब उसकी जेब पर जो स्ट्रेस है वो कम कब होगा? So indirectly now I am asking you inflation.
आप पूछ रहे हैं इन्फ्लेशन कब घटेगा? We have to see. हम सोच रहे हैं कि by March WPI inflation should be down. But Aam Aadmi doesn't see WPI inflation. What he sees is consumer price inflation, which means the prices of vegetables, the prices of sugar, wheat, of onions, of services, of education, healthcare. So that has been high for long, and we have to bring it down. Now I can't promise that will come to 5% by March. But I am hopeful that we will bring it down from the 9.8% that it is now. What are the factors that make me hopeful? I think we have a good monsoon. That will help in some prices. It's not directly going to affect onion prices, but it will help on pulses and oilseeds. Things like that will be helped. But also I think that as food inflation comes down, some of these other prices will stop growing. Education, school fees, healthcare, these will also start moderating. So I think the important thing is to tackle it sooner rather than later, which is why we're trying to focus on inflation now.
Right. Now, sir, the second part is, and again, जो सवाल है वो अफोर्डेबिलिटी का है, बिकॉज ऑन वन हैंड हो क्या रहा है, बिकॉज ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन आम आदमी की जेब में पैसा कम बच रहा है। सेकेंड, बिकॉज ऑफ हाई इंटरेस्ट रेट्स, जो जिसे कहते हैं स्पेंडिंग पावर जो है वो काफ़ी हद तक रेस्ट्रिक्ट हो गया, एंड स्पेशली द ईएमआई स्पेंडिंग। नाउ हमारी जो पूरी थियोरी थी ऑफ इंडिया स्टोरी, दैट वाज बेस्ड ऑन द कंजम्पशन स्टोरी, एंड वी हैड अ रोबस्ट डोमेस्टिक कंजम्पशन दैट इज अंडर थ्रेट एट दिस पॉइंट। तो ये क्या कुछ मिसमैच हुआ और अब तक वर वी शूटिंग इन द डार्क और समथिंग?
नहीं, मिसमैच हो रहा है, बिकॉज व्हाट यू सी इज इन्वेस्टमेंट is still about 35% of GDP, down from 38%. But savings, which are needed to finance the investment, has come down from 36% to 30%. So people are spending, but in a sense they have been spending more than we can afford, because that difference between what we invest and what we save, we have to borrow from outside. That is the current account deficit, 5% of GDP. It's too high. So we have to change how we spend. That consumption has to come down a little. Savings has to go up some more, so that we can finance the investment safely. So that's all jargon. What we're saying is that consumption growth, especially in urban areas, has been slowing. But that may be a necessary part of the adjustment. Now, I want to emphasize, we hope it won't be long lasting. We hope it doesn't have to be for a long period. But it is a part of the adjustment because, in a sense, we've been consuming too much. Now, part of the consumption growth is also coming from from rural areas. Wages there have been going up quite strongly. People feel more wealthy,
especially after Narega and schemes.
It's not just Narega. There's been more better prices for agriculture. Minimum support prices have been increasing. There's land. Farmers are selling land and becoming, getting some money into their hands as a result. But there's also more growth happening in rural areas. If you look at some of the strongest growing states, Bihar, Orissa. These are states that have been growing very fast and catching up. And so I think that what is happening is spending power is moving to the rural areas. Maruti sales are going up in rural areas. So even while the urban consumer feels pinched, the rural consumers' wages have been growing at fairly high rates till recently, and therefore they've been able to afford more. But after all, the overall consumption is what we have to look at,
right.
And that's been quite strong. So going forward, my hope is as inflation comes down, we will be able to lower interest rates, then EMIs will not be as high and the consumer will be able to afford more. But we will have to go through a period when interest rates are higher than we would want in the longer term.
So ये अभी फिलहाल obviously जो एक आप भी जो परस्यू कर रहे हैं पॉलिसी वो ये है कि मे बी शॉर्ट टर्म रेट्स जो हैं फाइनेंस के लिए उसे थोड़ा लो रखा जाए, जो लॉन्गर टर्म कर्व है वो शायद थोड़ा ऊपर रहेगा, एंड दैट्स व्हाट द पॉलिसी आल्सो रिफ्लेक्ट्स. लेकिन जो एंड यू नो अगर मैं आम आदमी के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखूं तो उसके मन में बस ये सवाल आता है कि अगर मैं एक कार खरीदना चाहता हूँ या फिर अगर मैं एक घर खरीदना चाहता हूँ तो उसके लिए जो EMI मैं दे रहा हूँ या फिर उसके लिए जो इंटरेस्ट रेट मैं पे कर रहा हूँ वो कम कब होगा? व्हाट इज योर आउटलुक?
जैसे कि इन्फ्लेशन कम होगा वो EMI कम होगा, क्योंकि हम उस वक्त इंटरेस्ट रेट को नीचे करेंगे. बट वी कांट predict when that will happen because we are hopeful, as I said, with this good monsoon, with more produce coming on the market, food inflation, which is a big part of consumer price inflation, will come down. If food inflation comes down, wage inflation will also come down. See, much of the pay in rural areas is tied to the cost of food.
Right.
If food prices go up, they have to pay somebody more because he's working almost on subsistence wages. If he's paid more, everybody else on top of him is paid more. So to break the spiral, we have to endure a period of somewhat higher rates. But I'm hopeful that some of these forces, more food coming onto the market, will keep inflation down. But also we are at a growth rate which is lower than what we've been used to.
Right.
So with this lower growth rate, we will also build up some room for prices to fall because manufacturers are saying we can't sell our produce. So उनको दाम घटाना पड़ेगा. जैसे auto companies are cutting prices for cars. That will help bring down inflation also.
But it could happen next fiscal, not necessarily this financial year.
I think hopefully over the next few quarters. I mean, we'll be watching the data very keenly over the next few months because the harvest is coming in. But remember, the weather people are predicting not just a good Kharif crop, but Rabi crop is also going to be good because there's a lot of water in the soil as a result of the heavy rains. So I'm hopeful that the weather gods are helping us this time.
Absolutely. Now, sir, इसमें एक do you feel frustrated because होता क्या है आम आदमी को महंगाई ज़्यादा लगती है तो he feels कि पता नहीं रघुराम राजन क्या कर रहे हैं, उनको महंगाई कम करनी चाहिए. ग्रोथ कम हो जाता है तो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर फील्स दैट RBI शुड सपोर्ट ग्रोथ और एटलीस्ट प्रो ग्रोथ पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए. जो सबसे बड़ा इश्यू है वो जो सप्लाई मिसमैच का है. एक तरफ हम few weeks back हम अनियन भी एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे थे, देन सडनली वी सॉ प्राइसेस आर 100 रुपीस पर केजी इन रिटेल एंड नाउ वी हैव रियलाइज कि हमें शायद इंपोर्ट करना पड़ेगा. ये जो मिसमैच है ये क्या कुछ हद तक फ्रस्ट्रेटिंग है फ्रॉम सेंट्रल बैंकर पर्सपेक्टिव?
I think supply constraints we have to take as given. If we didn't have these problems in coal production, we would have lots of power. If we had a lot of that power, we would have a lot more growth in South India, which has its power starved, where factories are getting a few hours of power. So we have to take it as given that there will be supply constraint. But if there is supply constraint, you can't say supply constraint hai isliye kuch mat karo. Because if supply constraint exists, then the prices, if there's a lot of demand, prices are going to go up. Because what is inflation but the difference between supply and demand? If supply is little and there's a lot of demand, prices are going to go through the roof. And then Aam Aadmi says, prices are really too high. So something has to give. If you can't increase supply very quickly in the short run, you have to reduce demand.
Correct.
And so we should be prepared for that balancing. And that is to some extent what we have to educate people on. that there is no way out of this. Overnight solution nahi hai. Over time supplies will increase, but in the short run, if you want to slow down inflation before it becomes totally embedded in people, everybody thinks prices are going to rise at a large rate. We have to slow down demand a little bit.
Correct.
And to that extent, growth necessarily will be a little slower than if we didn't have the inflation problem.
Absolutely. सर एक छोटा सा ब्रेक लेंगे. ब्रेक के बाद बात करेंगे करेंसी के बारे में, which was the third big challenge, but for the timing it seems कि it is being managed well. एक ब्रेक ले लेते हैं. ब्रेक के बाद जल्द लौटते हैं. ब्रेक के बाद एक बार फिर से आपका स्वागत है. सर माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज करेंसी, और इसमें एक बड़ी अजीब सिचुएशन हो गई थी फॉर अ सेंट्रल बैंकर कि एक तरफ ग्रोथ मैनेज करो, इन्फ्लेशन मैनेज करो, तीसरी तरफ करेंसी भी मैनेज करो. फॉर्चुनेटली एटलीस्ट ऐसा लग रहा है कि अब रुपया जो है दैट इज टेकिंग केयर ऑफ इटसेल्फ. कैन वी से दैट कंफर्टेबली नाउ, ऐसा कहा जा सकता है?
नहीं, सेंट्रल बैंकर शुड नेवर गेट टू कंफर्टेबल. देयर आर ऑलवेज रिस्क्स, बट I think the way we solved this, you pointed to three issues. एक तो currency, दूसरा growth, और तीसरा inflation. I think we solved this by saying कि let's focus only on two issues. We'll focus on inflation and growth, and if we can solve these, find the right mix, currency will take care of itself. And so I started emphasizing early on that we are focused on bringing down inflation, which I think is important. Because after all, the foreign investor also sees inflation as a problem, because he's buying rupees. When he brings his dollars into the country, he's buying rupees. And if that's falling in value in terms of what he can buy by 10% a year, he's basically saying this rupee 1 year from now is going to be worth much less. Do I really want to come into this country? So he doesn't want to come in, then the currency falls, our exchange rate falls. So you have to convince him also, not just Aam Aadmi, but the foreign investor, that inflation is going to remain low. If you can convince him that you are serious about tackling inflation, the rupee will take care of itself. It will be stronger than otherwise. So that is the approach we are following. We have obviously some measures in the market to directly tackle rupees, but I think the bigger sort of change we want to convey is that we are serious about inflation. Now RBI has always been serious about inflation, but we need to beat it from the rooftops that we are going to take action against this and try and bring it down. And I think that will help stabilize the rupee.
Right. But I think to some extent शायद ये message convey हुआ है, because lately if we see especially जो flows हमने equity market में देखे हैं, they are very comfortable. Markets are near all time high, and they call it Raghuram Rajan effect. 4th September से अब तक the way markets have behaved.
It's very dangerous to take credit for these things, because then you have to take credit when the market falls.
was आपको pressure feel होता है?
नहीं, you have to take credit when the market falls. So I don't take credit for all this. ये जो हुआ है मेरे कारण नहीं हुआ.
Right.
But I think what we have to focus on is get the macroeconomic environment stable. Get inflation down. That is the best way we can help growth. But we can help growth in other ways. And so that is the other part of my agenda. Let us try and increase the reach of the financial sector. Let us start having every village connected to the financial system. Let us give people in those villages good financial instruments that they can invest in, such as instruments that are protected, savings vehicles, things that they can save in which are protected against inflation. So these inflation index certificates, for example. Let us make sure that they can make payments. That person who wants to remit funds to his uncle in a remote village, he can do it cheaply using electronic wallet or using his bank account, that it can go to that village and be paid out to that person without anybody taking a big cut in the middle, without too many middlemen. Those are the kinds of things we need to do, and for that I think we can focus on financial sector development. That will also enhance growth. So this is instead of focusing on trying to reduce interest rates, which we are will find it difficult when inflation is so high. Maybe we can increase growth by creating more opportunity. We just liberalize bank branching. That is, banks can now open branches without asking us. I just read that Kotak Bank wants to double its branches in the next 3 years.
Correct.
If it wants to do that, that's an enormous change, because 25% of those branches have to be in underserved areas. And that will help people in villages who don't have access to bank accounts now. But we're also trying to push financial inclusion in other ways. Making use of the technology we have. Can we link up to that village shop so that somebody can get paid, operate a bank account from that shop with the help of the mobile company. Mobile payments can we do. So these are things we are exploring, and I'm hopeful that we can come up with solutions.
Right. और एक जो बहुत बड़ी डिबेट चल रही थी, एंड इसमें अगर हम इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव से देखें, दिस हैज ऑलवेज बीन अ डिबेट, गोल्ड कंजम्पशन. इसमें काफ़ी ज़्यादा पैनिक हमने आरबीआई और आरबीआई से भी ज़्यादा इनफैक्ट फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री में देखा था टू मे बी सप्रेस गोल्ड कंजम्पशन, थोड़ा कम करने के लिए. लेकिन जो इसमें काउंटर थियरी है, जो काफ़ी इकोनॉमिस्ट भी सजेस्ट करते हैं कि एक इंडियन आम आदमी जो है उसके पास, जिसे कहते हैं फ्लाइट टू सेफ्टी या फिर एक सॉलिड इन्वेस्टमेंट का ऑप्शन अगर कोई होता है तो वो गोल्ड रहता है. नॉट दैट आई एम सपोर्टिंग दैट थियरी, लेकिन आपका व्यू इसमें क्या है?
See, I want to say there's nothing wrong in seeing gold as a safe haven. Now, some people will dispute whether it's as safe as it's meant to be. Gold prices also fluctuate. But if somebody believes it and finds that they can trust gold, remember, gold is not, it's not just traditional. It's also very portable. I can carry my entire family's savings on my hands. So the bangles are a form of family savings, which are very liquid. Everybody knows what gold is worth. I can take it to the local money lender, for example, and get money against it. So I don't want to say that gold we should eliminate, it's bad. The truth, however, is that our current account deficit, which is how much we have to finance from abroad, blew out very rapidly in April, May of this year, because people went out and bought gold. Gold prices fell, and we imported something like 300 tons of gold. So if we want to show the world that we had a grip on the current account deficit, that we had brought down the current account deficit, we had to sort of curb gold imports. Is it a long-term solution? No. We have to let people buy what they want. We have to let people invest what they want. So I do envisage at some point we will reduce the tariffs, we will remove some of the some of the measures, the restrictions that we put in place. But I think that longer term, it is our responsibility in the government, in the Reserve Bank, to give people savings instruments that would channel their savings into productive sectors of the economy. Now, gold, yes, there's jewelry and all that. That is a productive sector. But for the most part, it is a dead asset.
Economy, correct.
If we can get financial savings, people invest in bonds, they invest in stocks, and they feel comfortable. We need to build up their comfort level. Then they can earn adequate returns, but the economy can also benefit because their savings are being channeled into productive sectors. So that, to some extent, is what is our responsibility. And I think going forward, that's what we have to work out.
Right. सर एक छोटा सा ब्रेक लेंगे. ब्रेक के बाद बात करेंगे इंडस्ट्री की जो कंसर्न्स हैं एंड मैक्रो कंसर्न्स. जल्द लौटते हैं ब्रेक के बाद. This question comes from the fact that आपका फोकस है काफ़ी इन्वेस्टमेंट एवेन्यूज बढ़ाने के लिए, स्पेशली फॉर द रिटेल सेविंग्स जो है उनके लिए. नाउ द इशू इज़, पहले गोल्ड फ्रेंजी थी, नाउ उसके बाद NSCL का क्राइसिस हमने देखा, उससे पहले जब स्टॉक्स क्रैश हुए थे 2008 में. होता क्या है, हर बार दैट रिटेल इन्वेस्टर बिकॉज ऑफ हिज हर्ड मेंटालिटी कोई एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट फॉलो करता है, देन इफ एट ऑल देयर इज अ मिसहैप, तो वो जो डर बैठ जाता है उसके अंदर, वो दैट ड्राइव्स हिम अवे फॉर many more quarters आने वाले काफ़ी समय तक, and we are facing that mutual fund industry अभी भी क्रिप कर रही है कि शायद outflows हो रहे हैं. इसका solution क्या होना चाहिए, and what do we do about issues like NSCL जो which may have a wider impact?
So we have to deal with these issues. We can't. I mean, it is an issue which is under investigation, so I don't want to call it a fraud. But there is, there are investors who have got burnt. Fortunately, I think it's a small set right now. Right. It didn't reach the larger population. But we have to be very careful. We are a poor country, and financial literacy is limited. People go to chit funds. They go to, people go and invest when they get an email from me saying, please give me 100,000 rupees. They'll send a check. Yeah. And then they'll say, RBI asked for it. And we keep saying RBI doesn't take people's money. We have plenty of money which we print. We don't need your money. Don't ever send a check to the RBI because somebody sent you an email saying RBI wants to give you some money. But people fall for this all the time. It's, some of it is education, but even very educated people get into this. So we have to, one, give them savings avenues which offer them reasonable returns and advertise those widely. So investing in the stock market, a little, not all your wealth, but some amount in the stock market, investing some amount in bonds, investing some amount in deposits, investing in provident fund, diversifying your holdings. That's an important lesson that everybody should learn. Don't take all your money and put it into one stock. Don't take all your money and put it into one new promotion that's coming about. And look for experience, look for trustworthiness, and there are plenty of trustworthy companies in the market. But we need to create comfort for this. So I think all of us have an education business to do. Your network is doing that by educating people on what makes sense.
Right. So last question to you, and this is again, अगर आपको foresight में देखना हो, and maybe crystal ball gazing sort of thing, at this point, इंडिया स्टोरी की सिचुएशन है क्या? बिकॉज एक जो आम आदमी है उससे अगर हम देखें तो वो तो काफ़ी डिसइल्यूजन्ड है. इंडस्ट्री है वो अभी भी काफ़ी रिलक्टेंट है टू किक स्टार्ट केपेक्स. आपकी अपनी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, सरकार की अपनी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, एंड देन देयर आर स्कैम्स. इंडिया स्टोरी है कहाँ पे इस समय?
नाराज़ होने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज आई थिंक दैट थिंग्स विल चेंज, थिंग्स विल टर्न अराउंड. इट विल टेक टाइम. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दिस विल हैपन टुमारो, but I think that partly what we've run up against is the limits of the old way of growth. The new way of growth requires more transparency. We can't allocate coal mines without a transparent process of allocation, without auctions and so on. But that new way, which I think we are in the process of developing, will be more sustainable, will be more fair, will be more equitable. So one of the good things about democracy is when things go wrong, it basically pushes the system to find solutions. So if you look at the history of democracies and growth, you find that it's more stable. It'll go off track, but it'll get pushed back because democracy then demands a solution. So when Aam Aadmi says things are not going well, and I don't like the way things are going, kuch karo. The politicians listen and they start making changes. Maybe this is excessive faith in the democratic system, but I think you are seeing some changes happen, and that will turn around to some extent the path of growth. I think with stronger growth, the news stories will become happier. Right. But also I'm hopeful we will be able to bring down inflation. People will feel wealthier and things will turn around. You can't keep a country with the kind of talents and capacities that we have down for too long. That is not to say that success is assured. I'm not saying we have to work at it, but I think we can.
Right. चलिए सर, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे साथ इस बातचीत में शामिल होने के लिए, एंड इट वाज अ प्लेजर बिकॉज यू स्पोक वेरी अनयूजुअली. और जो यूजुअल मैक्रो इश्यूज होते हैं उसकी बजाय एक अच्छी चीज़ ये थी दैट यू आंसर्ड लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस जो डेली एक आम आदमी के मन में आते हैं. थैंक्स फॉर दैट सर. प्लेजर हैविंग यू ऑन द शो. थैंक यू सर. थैंक्स.